Welcome back, guys. In this video we want to talk about the AndroidManifest XML because in my opinion this is the most important configuration file if we analyze an Android application. So what makes this file that important for us? This is something we're going to find out right now. Let's have a look. Alright, here we are back at the Ubuntu VM and I have prepared a little application where we can analyze an AndroidManifest XML. So you will find this app as an attachment of this section. I already got it here, this one, this privacy.apk. So the first question is, how can we get this AndroidManifest out of this file? I mean, we have seen two options, unzip and apk tool D. Unzipping it doesn't bring us any advantage because the AndroidManifest XML will be still in its proprietary binary format. And therefore we need to use the apk tool with the D option, which decodes this binary file into a plain XML file. Alright, so therefore let's do this. I'm doing a right click, open a new terminal, because then I'm directly in this directory here. And then apk tool, D on this privacy apk. Alright, we can see decoding AndroidManifest XML with resources and all the other options. Also, for example, classes.dex and so on. And if we take a look into this one, here we have it right now. Let's go for the Visual Studio Code Editor. So open with other application. And there we have it. Oops, not this one. Here we have it. I have also, already enabled select language XML. I mean, this is being done by default. And we also enable word wrap. Then we've got everything on the page. So those lines will be simply break off over here, for example, that we do not have to scroll on the right. Okay. So here we have now this file, and let's split it up a little bit and then let's take it to the graphic tablet, okay? So we split it up over here. We've got a tag uses permission. Here we've got permission. Here we've got some queries. Here's an application tag, provider, receiver, service. You can see we've got a lot of stuff in here. I mean, this is as much as we need during this course. There's a bunch of new stuff which might not be familiar right now, for example those queries, but I mean that's why we are here. We discuss this right now. Okay, so I guess this looks good. Yes, so let's take this to the graphic tablet and then let's have a deeper look into this file right now. Okay, let's do this. Alright, so here we are back on the graphic tablet and now let's find out what makes this file that important for an Android application hacker. Because this is the first file I'm taking a look into if I analyze an application. Let's find this out right now. Okay, we start with line 1 because we will analyze every single line in here. So this one over here. The first half of this line is not really that important. It starts getting interesting at this point. Okay, so what do we have here? We've got Android Compile SDK version 30 and we've got Android Compile SDK version code name, let me get the cursor out of the way, 11. So this means the developer has used the compiler settings for Android version 11, which is this one, Android version 11, and the RP level for Android version 11 is RP level 30. So that's this one over here, this is just the RP level. Why is this now important? Because it means that every security option till Android version 11 is being included in this app over here. And for example, in Android version 7, there was a huge change regarding to the trust relationship of certificates. The user storage of an Android smartphone is not longer being trusted as default. And this means the security setting is being used in this application over here. Also regarding to things like the visibility of broadcast receivers or stuff like this. So far we haven't talked about all these components, broadcast receiver, certificate pinning and stuff like this. And this version is dedicated to the AndroidManifest XML. And to be honest, I have to use these components quite often during this file. But don't worry, we will have an extensive look into every single one of them during this course. Okay, so this file is simply just getting an overview about this application, and therefore do not worry too much if you cannot follow on certain terms right now, because we haven't discussed them yet. Alrighty? Perfect. Okay, and back to this one, all security features till Android version 11 are being included in this app. Alright. Next, it's getting even more interesting because this one over here, this is the package name. And the package name is some kind of unique identifier for this application. And so unique. All right. I guess it's hard to read, but still possible. Alrighty. So the unique identifier, I mean, yes, it's a unique identifier for this application, but it is not a trust relationship between a developer and an application. What does this mean? Well, let's have a look. This one is the unique identifier. Let's install this app now on our smartphone. So here's our smartphone. All right. Okay, and here we have now this application, this one over here. So this is being installed here. This means we can only have one application with this identifier, this one, let's make it more dramatic, on our device. If we now try to install another application, this one for example, with the same identifier over here, so this one, then we are getting an error. Because the smartphone is telling, nope, I already have one application with this unique identifier on the device, and this one is not this application over here. The check is based on the signing certificate. Don't worry, we will talk about signing later on, but I mean, it's also not that relevant. All we need to know right now is we cannot have two applications with the same name running on our device. Okay, but why is this now important or interesting? Because the package identifier is not some kind of trust relationship to a certain developer. Let's say we've got a chatting application on our device. This one. And yes, I don't know a name. So let's call this one is, for example, WhatsApp. Okay. WhatsApp has a unique identifier. Something with Com, Facebook or Meta, I'm not sure about this one right now, it has a unique identifier. Alright, but this identifier can be chosen by every developer too. So if I develop an application, I can choose whatever package identifier I like to use. In this case right now, let's say I'm using this exact same package identifier. And if the user has not WhatsApp being installed on the device already, then my application will be installed. And it looks absolutely legit or the same. Until the user tries to install the real WhatsApp application, this one, for example via the Google Play Store, then the user gets an error because there's already one application with this package identifier on the device. Alright? So it doesn't mean if you're having the package identifier Com, Facebook, WhatsApp or things like this, that this is the original application. It could be in fake, a Trojan horse or things like this. Alrighty? Okay, so that's one important fact about this package identifier. The other one is that we as attacker are also quite often using it because we can use this package identifier to address this application regarding to our scripts, tools, or even within the ADB shell. We can use this package identifier to target a certain application on this device. So this is really useful and important information for us. Okay? All right. And let me do a little bit of a cleanup right now and then we move on over here. Okay? Okay, back to this one. So at the end of this line, we've got then this part, and this is not really relevant because this is just the build version code, which means that the developer has verified that this application works on RP level 30 or Android version 11. Okay, nothing more. The important part is the one in green, in this part over here. So this makes sure which compiler has been used to build this application or which compiled version, in this case Android version 11. So we also need to meet the requirements and security features for this version. And then we are done with line 1. But don't worry, the next one will be a little bit more faster, at least I hope so. Okay, what do we have next? Next we've got those 3 lines. Okay, and what do we have here? We've got uses permission, and then we've got Android permission read contacts, internet, read external storage. So these are the permissions our Android application can use. It doesn't mean that they are being used, but the application has the ability to use them. So the application can access our contacts, this one over here, if the user grants this permission to our application. All right. Then the application can perform some network requests with the internet permission, but I mean, that's pretty common right now. And last but not least, this one is a little bit important for an attacker because it means the application is interacting with the external storage of our smartphone. All right. So Every time the application wants to perform a certain task, getting access to the microphone, camera, accessing our photos and stuff like this, these permission needs to be included in the manifest XML. They cannot be added afterwards. They need to be initially included. And this also gives us a good overview what this app is capable to do. Might interact with context and also with the external storage. So we should figure out what this app is doing. I mean, context, yes, could be important, but this one over here, the read external storage, might be a little bit more important. Why? Maybe let's have a quick view into the data structure of an Android app and how this is being handled. We will have extensive videos on this topic, but for now, let's see why this one is important for us. Okay, so here we have our smartphone. This time it's being yellow. And if we install our application, then this application is being installed in a protected directory. So those applications are being sandboxed. We will have a look into this one when we talk about permissions. Okay, so the sandbox directory is under data, and then the package name of this application. Okay, so that's the protected directory. Other applications are not able to interact or see those data. Okay, if we're having root or system privileges, another story, but other regular applications cannot do this. But sometimes it's important that applications share or access shared medias. For example, the music directory, downloads directory, photos and things like this. So these files are being stored on a public available directory, which is the SD card. So that's not an application right now, that's a public available directory under SD card. And this one doesn't mean right now, it's a little bit confusing, but it doesn't mean that it's a physical SD card in our device. So attached to this device right now. The SD card, I guess the term comes from the eMMC, which is, what was it? Embedded multimedia card, I guess. Yes, I guess embedded multimedia card. And this is basically the same like an SD card. So even if you're not having a physical SD card plugged into our device, the directory name will be still SD card based on the eMMC. That's just a flash chip, okay? All right, so this SD card now contains several directories. For example, the downloads directory or the music directory, the documents and more. Why is this now important? Because it could mean that this application stores some sensitive data on the SD card or it's fetching some data which are being used in this app. In this case, we are having read external storage, so it might just fetch data from a file over here. And depending on the data this application is fetching, it could affect the workflow, or for example, the application security itself. An attacker might be able to abuse this in the following way, that the attacker also gets this permission, also the write permission, for example. Then the attacker places its own application on the smartphone and then modifies this file. Let's say that's the directory, which will be read afterwards from this app, modifies this file, which gets afterwards used in this application. All right, so it escalated a little bit. Let me clean this up here. Okay, so this means if we are seeing permissions like read external storage, then we should check out what the application is doing with this permission. That's the key takeaway from this whole drawing right now. Alrighty, okay, clean up and then back to this one. Okay, next we've got this line over here. And here we need to be very precise what we are reading. We've got permission. And if we take a look above, then we had uses permission. So the yellow permissions are being predefined permissions which are being used by this application. But now, this one is now defining an own permission. And this is something we will heavily exploit during this course. So the application can also define an own permission. And here we've got the label, what this permission is doing. So here we can see, allows reading user in, oh, there's a typo in there, user information, but I mean, that's the description, so it's perfectly fine. This is the description of this one. So we are allowed to read user informations, okay. And then we've got the name. The name is now the name if we want to request this permission within our own application. And then we've got a protection level dangerous. And this one over here. So we will talk about this extensively in the common videos right now. To sum this up, it simply just means an application can define its own permission if you want to perform some sensitive task, but want to share this task with other applications, then they can ask for requesting this one. And if the user grants this permission, then they can exchange data between each other. Okay? So that's what this one over here defines. So within our Android application, we can use existing permissions, or we can also create our own ones. And this is important because we will exploit this during this course. Alrighty? Okay. Then next we've got this one, this queries. And this one is an Android security feature which has been implemented, I guess, in version 8 and higher, but don't quote me on this one. So this means if our application wants to exchange data with another application via a component, for example, in broadcast receiver, then it needs to be visible for the other application. In this case right now, it's the Sieve application. So I guess in drawing will explain this a little bit better. So let's say we've got here our Sieve application. Okay, and here we've got our application, the privacy application. Privacy. If we now want to exchange data with the Sieve application, we need to tell the Sieve application that we exist. And this is exactly what this query parameter over here does. It tells Sieve, hey, we do exist on the smartphone and we want to get back the data we have asked for. This should be an I. Maybe it's not that clear, but I guess it's okay. So now the Sieve application knows, okay, we are an application on the smartphone and we exist. We are asking for data, and here we can see Sieve is returning data back. Alright, so that's what this query parameter means. We will also use this if we write our own attacking application to bypass locking screens, extract sensitive information, or perform an arbitrary file access. Then this one over here will be required, so therefore I have included it. Okay? Alright, so we can see we already got a lot of stuff in our configuration file, and now we focus on the second half. So over here, we've got this application tag. This starts over here and it ends here. Okay, let's see what's inside this application tag right now. So I choose a new color, this one, and let's see. This one is the first interesting entry. Allow backup true. So it means we can perform a backup, for example, via the ADB shell, and the data of this application will be included in our backup. It doesn't mean that there are sensitive information included in our backup like credentials or tokens or things like this. It just means that some data will be backupped. So the configuration is being done by the application itself. But we know, okay, we have the opportunity to perform a backup for this app. So we should definitely try this out, what data are being included over here. Okay? All right. Then we've got this one. This is not really interesting, so we skip this part. And then we've got Android debuggable true. We will talk about debugging an application at the end of this course because this topic can be a little bit more complex. It simply just means that having this feature enabled, we are allowed to attach to this process of this application. So we are allowed to debug it, which is, I mean, it's good for an attacking perspective. And to be honest, if you build a release or if you're making a release build of your application, this will be automatically being set to false. So it's not really often included. But even if it's not being included, the AndroidManifest XML, this file over here, can be used to enable it once again. Let's say this one has been set to false. Okay, does this mean we are not allowed to debug this application? For now, yes. But what if we are simply decoding this application, so with the APK tool decode, modifying the AndroidManifest XML to enable it once again, build this application and install it. Then we would have a debuggable enabled and we could attach to this one once again. So the AndroidManifest XML can be also used to enable certain features, for example, debug features. Okay? Yes, absolutely nice. So you get some nice styles here. Okay, next we've got Android extract native libs false. This one simply just means if we have native libraries included in our application, they are not longer being compressed. So this will increase the size of our application, but unless they are small, it doesn't really affect us at all. So this flag is normally not very important for us. This is just if the developer has chosen to compress the native libraries or not. Until we are talking about FreeDA. when we inject Frida into native library, then this one needs to be false, because otherwise we are injecting Frida into a compressed library and this wouldn't work. Okay, so for now we can simply ignore this. If we talk about Frida and injecting Frida into a native library, then we will get back to this topic and it has to be set to false. Alrighty, perfect. Let's move on. Next, we've got this icon. That's the app icon, not really important. So maybe let's do it this way. Not important for us. Then we've got the Android label, also not important. So therefore, let's get rid of this one. Okay. Then we've got the Android network security config. This one. This is really important for us. Okay, we already know we are targeting Android version 11, which means we also need to meet all the requirements, security requirements regarding to Android version 11. And in this case, we have to include our network security config XML in our app. What is this one doing? It's regarding to certificate pinning. In version 7, there was a huge change regarding to certificate pinning. Cert pinning. Oh, it's not greater, it's greater equal version 7, which means the applications are not trusting the user storage of our smartphone anymore. If we want to trust them, we have to include this in a network security config, also if we are having own certificates and stuff like this. So this file is pretty important when we are dealing with a certificate pinning. So over there, we are also having an extensive look into this file, how to use it and why we are using it. For now, the only thing we need to remember is if we're having this file, then we should definitely check this out, because there might be some certificate pinning active in this application, and these are very useful information to bypass this. Or if this file has not been included, we can define our own in this application, and then we are able to re-enable the user storage of our smartphone. Okay, so yes, don't worry, we will talk about this later on. All right, then we've got an icon which is regarding to round. Not really important, it's the same icon but just as an round logo. And then we've got this one which is regarding to the format right and left. So if the application can handle this, also not important. And then the theme, also not important. Okay, so far so good. The most important things we are getting out of this one, we can also get rid of this one. Okay, and these are the most important information we can get out of this one. So our application is debuggable. We can perform a backup, and it has a custom network security config, which can be used or can be handy to bypass certificate pinning. Last but not least, we've got extract native libs equals false, but I mean, to be honest, it's not that important. If it's not being included, then we can simply add it and we're good to go. All right, so these are the three most important options. Let's move on to make this video not unnecessarily long. A little bit of cleanup first. Okay, we are already reaching the last part. I mean, we haven't talked about them, those components over here. So these are the 4 key components of an Android application, and we will talk about them in just a couple of videos extensively. So these are very important, and they also need to be defined in the AndroidManifest XML. So by looking into this file, we already got a good understanding what this application has in its background. So even without installing or having a look into this one, we can see we are having activities, for example, this one over here. Activity, it's a screen content, which means we have 2 different screen layouts in our apps. We've got a profile screen. So over here, for example, this could be a profile screen. And we've got a main activity with some intent filter. Intent filters are filters which are listening for certain intents. In this case, those 2 are regarding to pressing this icon on the smartphone. So if you press this icon, then the intent filter will be triggered and this smartphone screen, the main activity, will be started. So this is our entry point. Don't worry, we will have an extensive view into all of these components later on. Okay, so that's our entry. Okay, so based on this one, we know we've got 2 screens. That's the first one and that's the second one. And then we can see this one over here. This one is in service, and in service is just a background task. So in service is being used when we need to perform a resource intensive task, because this is not allowed to be done on the UI thread, which means if our application gets blocked by a long task, it will be terminated by the system. This is something it should happen in the background. Okay, so that's a service in a nutshell. Okay, so here we have our service. We do not know what the service is doing based on the name. It's maybe regarding to weather notification, so it could access some data from a weather database and fetching it back and provide us information about the new weather informations or stuff like this. We have to analyze this in the application, but we know there's some kind of background task running in our app. All right. And then last but not least, this one over here. Oh, sorry, I did ping it wrong. This one over here, this is our weather service. And this one, in this color, and this one is broadcast receiver. A broadcast receiver is simply just an information for applications. For example, let's say we are receiving an SMS. Then we've got this notification, this audio notification, and also this pop-up on the screen that we have received a new SMS. And also applications will be informed about this event, that an SMS has been received right now. Okay, so this is simply just a messaging system. Okay. So let's also add this over here. Okay, so let's say here we can see we are informing all those applications about a certain event. Okay, broadcast receivers are prime attack surfaces, so we will also exploit them quite heavily in this course over here. Okay, for now we only keep it in this way. There is some broadcast event or receiver in our application. All right, last but not least, we've got this content provider. And the content provider is simply just a form of interacting or providing content. Most of the time this is regarding to database accesses. So our application might use a database where it stores some information. In this case we can see it's also named this way, user database. User database. Alright, so our application might also have a database where it stores those user details. Okay, one last thing I want to mention over here is that this content provider has this path permission enabled here. And we can see this path permission is now this read permission, user info, and this one has been defined over here. So if someone else wants to read this database information, it has to request this permission. Okay, this is regarding, or this has been bound to the content provider over here. So if an external application tries to read those data, it has to request this permission. Alrighty? Okay, so first of all, don't worry if you couldn't follow along all the time. Activities, broadcast receiver, services, content provider, these are separate topics we will discuss in detail later on. I just wanted to show you, by analyzing this file, how much information we get out of this. I mean, let's summarize this really quick what we've got over here. Okay, we've got Android security features till Android version 11 enabled. Alright, then we've got our unique identifier. Okay, this application which we are analyzing right now might interact with contacts database. It might interact or send data, and it can also access files on public available storage. Alrighty? Okay. Then this one is also defining its own permission. It's being debuggable, we can back up it. And what was the third point over here? Yes, it has a custom network security config, which means this one can be super handy if we are dealing with a certificate pinning. So we will find a lot of useful information already inside there. Okay. Then it has certain components. It has at least two screens, a background task in form of a service, and broadcast receiver, which is listening to certain events. And it also has a database which can be accessed by external applications if they are requesting the custom permissions. All right. This is a huge stuff just based on a single configuration file, isn't it? Absolutely. And this is why this configuration file is that important for us as application hackers, and also my first view into an application if I analyze one. Alrighty. So all the things we have seen right now are everything we need during our course. And to be honest, I guess these are also most of the stuff you will find in a configuration file like this one over here. Okay, so this is everything for this video right now. In case if you have certain questions, please drop a message under this video. I'm glad to receive some feedback. And otherwise, I'm looking forward to see you in the next video.